Let's see what led up to this now infamous picture. I want to be clear that I'm not here to defend one person or the other. I just want to build a case from the ground up based on what we actually know. A group of CCH students had gathered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial prior to departing on a bus. This is something they do every year just to make sure that no one gets left behind. It's common for them to engage in cheers while they're gathering. This year, a group of 5 black Hebrew Israelites were standing near the memorial and shouting various demeaning things at the students. They were also shouting demeaning things towards the Indigenous Peoples March. They posted a 2-hour video that starts about 75 minutes before the picture was snapped, and I'll include a link to that in the video description. Phillips walked between these two groups with his drum with the intent to defuse the situation. The initial reaction by the CCH kids was confusion. Some thought that Phillips wanted to lead them in another cheer. Some were just kind of hyped up. At first, it seemed like the sort of moment that everyone could smile about later. Phillips walked through the crowd with his drum, and initially he and his friends were able to find a way through it. People would just move to the left or the right, and Phillips and his crew would walk on through the crowd until he got to the kid in the picture. Now, the kid didn't move into Phillips' way. He just happened to be in the way, and when Philip got to him, he froze up. Now, Phillips, the crowd had closed in behind him, so he and his friends were unable to retreat or back up at all. And let's just take a moment to recognize that they're now surrounded by a bunch of unfamiliar teenagers. So when Phillips says he felt intimidated because his kid wouldn't move, I believe him. I don't think that was what the kids intended to do, and I don't think that the pictured kid was trying to spook Phillips, but it's reasonable that Phillips felt uncomfortable. As for the kid, let's look at his actions more closely too. As Phillips slowly moves through the crowd, Phillips' friends can be seen smiling and laughing along with the teenagers. It seems like all is going well. The kid is also smiling and laughing. When Phillips reaches the kid, because several other teenagers move to the side, the kid initially smiles nervously, gulps hard enough to be noticeable on camera, then stands awkwardly in place like a deer in headlights. He doesn't seem to know what to do in this situation, so he opts for the easiest thing: smile and do nothing. And we really do need to appreciate, this is a kid from a Catholic high school in Kentucky. He probably had a bit of a sheltered life, and yet now there's a Native American beating a drum and singing directly in front of him. I don't blame him for freezing up here. However, the kid doesn't get into Phillips' face. He never takes a step. Phillips also doesn't try to get into the kid's face. He's moving through the crowd, and he's thinking that people are going to keep moving to the side and allowing him to pass through. But this kid just doesn't. There's another moment that isn't in the viral clip that says to me, this kid was not trying to be a jerk at this particular moment of time. While Phillips is drumming and singing, an indigenous person and another teenager get into a shouting match right behind the kid. At first, the kid just stands there, transfixed, smiling awkwardly at Phillips. But when the voices rise, he turns and seems to gesture for his friend to quiet down. He points at Phillips as if to say, "I don't know what this guy's doing, but I think we should shut up and let him do it." Unfortunately, he is unable to stop the shouting. But after looking around, he steps out of the way. He seems to kind of snap back to his senses. He steps out of the way, and Phillips continues up the stairs for a brief moment before being stopped by another guy who has his back turned and isn't paying attention. The indigenous person who was in the shouting match with the teenager seems to be chastised by his own friends. Phillips turns toward them. Again, he's turning toward the conflict, and he's still drumming and singing. The kid has disappeared into the crowd. In short, Phillips walked into a situation with the hope of diffusing it, and he did. He had an awkward but ultimately harmless interaction with a nervous kid. It was probably a little scary for everyone involved, but Phillips wasn't being aggressive, and the kid wasn't being disrespectful. If we're truly interested in discourse or in making America great, we should dial back the partisan mudslinging and recognize this moment is something that was almost a very good thing. And let's not drag this kid's name through the dirt for freezing up. A moment's smile isn't enough to throw the social justice book at him, especially when the rest of the evidence doesn't support that.